Outside of what they currently believe. And I'm just asking you for one video, open your mind, please. I beg you, just this one time. Pretend that you aren't the smartest human on earth. Understand that I don't claim to know every fact. And to be honest, there's some facts that will never be known simply because they've been hid too well. But if you're a human being with a brain and you're not afraid of your own stupidity, it's okay to question things. You know, what does that hurt? One of my subscribers wrote one of the best comments I've seen the other day, so I have to share it because it's what being a human means. And he said, in the past 7 days, I have gone from knowing the earth was round to really believing the earth could be flat. And I thought that was a great admission. So all I ask you guys is to listen, be open to what I'm saying, and then question me, debunk me, prove me wrong. You know, disagree with me. Because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? That's science. You know, how is it that this has been forgotten? I don't know. You know, you forgot what it's all about. No question should be closed to debate. Not one. Yet science has shut down all debates. They shut down questions. They shut off thinking. They close doors. They close minds. Close discussions. You know, all you science fans love to make fun of the popes of the 16th and 17th century. Laugh, 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 and make fun of them because they refused to hear arguments outside of their dogma at the time. Wow, how unscientific. Sound familiar? I mean, NASA doesn't answer any questions. Brian Cox won't answer an open letter. I guess it's easier just to collect a paycheck. But you do need to use your mind. You know, NASA's not going to come out and say, oh, the moon landings were a hoax. Never. So does that mean we just accept it and move on, or can we actually use our minds? I mean, if you've watched my videos or any of the other guys talking about this stuff, would you at least admit that at the very least that the flat versus ball earth is not quite as 100% fact as you thought? If you can admit that, then why were we taught to laugh at it? Can't you see that every single thing that we were taught in school was to make us become who they wanted? Did we learn about killing and fooling the Indians? Did we learn about killing all their buffalo so they had nothing to eat? Did we ever hear that Roosevelt knew about Pearl Harbor? I mean, think about what we were taught. That America, the great and powerful and the wonderful, had but one goal, and that was to spread democracy. Is that the truth? Well, if you haven't realized it yet, this world runs on money. We are slaves. I mean, we work to make the rich get richer. World War I made the rich richer. World War II made the rich richer. The lies in the Gulf of Tonkin and 9/11, everything made the rich get richer. Iraq and their oil. I mean, who is the greatest inventor of the 20th century? I mean, that alone should just tell you so much. You know, who weren't we taught? We weren't taught about Tesla at all. You know, the inventor of alternating current, the one who developed and used fluorescent light bulbs 40 years before they were invented, the inventor of X-rays, the inventor of the radio, the inventor of the electric motor. How about the inventor of robotics? How about the inventor of laser? How about the inventor of wireless communication? I mean, take a look at his hundreds of patents, and all of it is suppressed by big industry and even our so-called institutions of higher education. So please forgive me if I don't just bow down to the scientific community, to the intellectual community.
Hi, and welcome. I've been investigating flat earth theory now for the past 6 months. It has been a most interesting journey, to say the least. I've watched how many with open minds and hearts have become open to the possibility, or in my own humble opinion, likelihood, that we have just uncovered the greatest lie ever perpetrated on the entire student body of Mother Earth for the past 500 years. These discoveries go to the very core and fiber of our being, while challenging all that we thought we knew to be true. This is why so many act out so incredulously and angrily and attack you, call you names, and dismiss the deep research and work I and many others are putting into this apocalypse. Apocalypse meaning in ancient Greece, the lifting of the veil of untruths and lies. Again, the powers that be have usurped the original meaning to mean something altogether quite different. It is said that in wartime that you will know you're getting very close to the target when flak from below intensifies. Well, if this is true, we are at ground zero now as trolls, shills, disinfo agents, and the like are flooding the chat rooms, websites, and video links of those just suggesting an alternative narrative to what we've all been taught from those who really, really don't give a care about you, me, the Earth's sentient beings, or your children's future. So please, give us truth seekers a break. If this info is not for your taste, simply move on. You don't belong here. But for those with eyes to see, ears to hear, and those wishing to explore, investigate, research, use their own common sense, logic, observation, and reason to develop their own opinions and beliefs, let's all go down the rabbit hole together one more time and see all the lies that the nassholes of NASA have laid on the unaware masses for some 500 years now.
It's the third time I've said that. I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda. I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda. To kind of catapult the propaganda.
Ah, yes, the propaganda. This image is what is known as the blue marble. Has anyone alive the past 45 years not seen this image provided from NASA? This is one of the, if not the most famous, quote, pictures ever taken during the last Apollo mission. Except according to NASA themselves, it is not one picture, but 41 composites stitched together in Photoshop by them. The other most famous picture ever seen by all is called Earthrise from the alleged Apollo 8 mission around the moon. There is likely not more than a handful of people on our Earth that has not seen these pictures at least once. These pictures are shown over and over and over again for over 40 years now. These are the same exact pictures still being used, though we are said to have had hundreds of satellites orbiting and shooting pictures of Earth, as well as images provided from NASA from the space shuttle some 130 miles above for decades now. Do you know why NASA always calls these images and not photographs? It's because that is what they are. Why? Why would NASA need to stitch together so many images when clearly they should have thousands and thousands of round ball Earths in one shot? Let's look at the Earthrise image again. It's one shot. These are images and paintings, folks. They're fakes. All of them. That is why they're called images and not photographs. Truth be told, NASA had Photoshop long before Apple, and DARPA, the U.S. Military Advanced Technology Department, released the internet to the public in 1994 after having it private in their military facilities for decades. These images are meant to deceive, but now with common CGI and technological advancement, we can take apart these decades-old images to see how they were constructed in the late 1960s and 70s. That exposes once and for all a very important component of the great 500-year-old lie.
This is what you guys do. But I've been doing the research. You guys have been telling me that there is a Hubble Space Telescope taking pictures of stars. You've been telling me that astronauts are in the International Space Station. This is what you guys have been saying. Don't tell me you haven't been telling me this. Let's go into this thing here now. Now let's go into the layers of the atmosphere. We have the troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and the exosphere. Now the satellites are supposed to be in the thermosphere. Thermo is dealing with heat. Now, how hot are we talking? Okay, well, according to Wiki Answers, the temperature goes from 600 degrees Celsius to 2,000 degrees Celsius. I don't know if you know how hot that is, but that's as hot as a blast furnace. We're supposed to believe that they have these machines in the thermosphere where the temperature goes up to 2,000 degrees Celsius. This is, think of it, the satellites will become balls of flame. It will become a comet. They're moving at 17,000 miles an hour. And you have supposedly 26,000 satellites in space. This is what they said. But yet and still, they're telling us that we have things looking like this. Look at this. Does this look hot to you? This is gold, and come on, guys. This is ridiculous. Anywho, this is how satellites would actually look at the temperature that they're telling us the thermosphere is. They're telling us that thermosphere is from 600 degrees Celsius to 2,000 degrees Celsius. This is how it would look. This is how the Hubble telescope would look at 1,200 degrees Celsius. This is how it would look. This is how it would look from 500 to 1,000 degrees Celsius. Guys, this doesn't make any sense. This is a fantasy. Here you are telling me that you got satellites taking pictures. Just please send me footage of a satellite. Now here we have a blast furnace. As you can see, a blast furnace, the temperature is from 2,000 to 2,300 degrees Celsius. With a blast furnace, you create iron from putting ore into it, and then you blast it with air. This is how this is how the satellites would look if they were really in space, but they're not, because they're fake. They don't exist. The only source that you think is credible, and this is what they're going to tell you. Now, when it comes to the thermosphere, this is what they say. The highly diluted gas in this layer can reach 2,500 degrees Celsius during the day. Even though the temperature is so high, one would not feel warm in the thermosphere because it is so near vacuum that there is not enough contact with the few atoms of gas to transfer heat. A normal thermometer would read significantly below 0 degrees Celsius because the energy lost by thermal radiation would exceed the energy acquired from the atmospheric gas by direct contact. Now, if that's not a crock of bullshit, I don't know what is. I got a bridge to sell you. You know, does this even make any sense? So you mean to tell me that this layer of the atmosphere is as hot as a blast furnace, but it's actually not hot. It's actually below 0 degrees Celsius. This is what they're going to tell you. And now you're going to have to explain this to me. So before you come to me and tell me I'm crazy, before you come to me and tell me that I'm a troll and I'm looking for views, you're going to have to explain how the hell a layer of the atmosphere could be 2,500 degrees Celsius, but actually 0 degrees Celsius. Because if that's the case, then we shouldn't feel the heat from the sun. Because according to them, the sun is far out in the space. It's far out in the vacuum. So you have to explain to me, how do we feel the heat from the sun? Someone has to explain this. I'll wait. I'll wait for someone to explain this, because I know you guys are geniuses. You guys are intellectuals that's watching this video. You guys are smarter than I am, right? So you're going to have to explain to me how we feeling the heat from the sun. But here we have a layer of the atmosphere that's supposedly hot, but because it's in the vacuum, it's not hot. I'll wait for the explanation, because I know some of you guys are Einsteins. I know you guys are prodigies. You guys are nerds, right? You guys are so smart. So I'll wait for this explanation. Let's move forward. Now we're going to look at these melting points, because this is really what 1,000 degrees Celsius. But all the elements that it's made of can melt at 1,000 degrees Celsius. And now here's a picture of the Hubble Space Telescope. This is in the friggin' thermosphere. And this is how it looks. You guys have no problem with this. And of course you have rocket propulsion. Now, I didn't even write any notes for this one because this one is so ridiculous. So you mean to tell me they're using rockets in space? But they said that in space is a vacuum. How are you pushing against nothing? It doesn't make any sense. Alright, let me give you an example. Let's say you have a boat. Now with the boat, you have the oars or the propeller. The propeller or the oars are pushing against water. Let's say you take the boat outside of the water and you're still, pushing the propeller or spinning the propeller, and you're still, rowing the boat. You're not going to go anywhere. That's the same principle for rockets. In the Earth's atmosphere, you have an atmosphere to push against. So when you blast a rocket, you'll go forward. But when you're in space, according to them, they say it's a vacuum. So how the hell are we seeing satellites with this? How are we seeing satellites with this bullshit? Someone has to explain what type of propulsion system you're using, but they're telling us it's satellites. Because this is the picture. This is a NASA photo. This doesn't make any sense. This proves even further that these satellites are fake. These satellites don't exist. And now they have, what's this? Solar panels? So you mean to tell me that they are more environmentally conscious in space than they are on Earth? Are you serious? So they don't have solar panel cars, but they have solar panel satellites. It doesn't make any sense for them to all of a sudden be so conscious. But that's besides the point. But my main point is, this rocket propulsion in space is ludicrous.
Now how many satellites are in orbit? You can't get a number. But that number will range from anywhere between 1,500 to 20,000 satellites. You'll always get a different number as to how many satellites exist in orbit. What do satellites look like? The old satellites from the 70s were very large. The Navy even recently had an operation where they pretended to shoot a satellite out of orbit to minimize its danger in re-entry, and they described this satellite as being the size of a bus. Satellites used to be quite large. Nowadays, they want you to believe that satellites can fit in the palm of your hand. Now they have CubeSat satellites, and they can they can be deployed from the International Space Station by hand. An astronaut can toss one of these CubeSat satellites at the Earth. Doesn't even matter how he throws it at the Earth. You could throw it at the Earth or towards an orbital plane. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you toss it and it's tumbling uncontrollably, but this is what they'll have you believe.
I'm telling you now, there are no satellites up in space. All the information is gathered from the ground, so there's no need to have satellites floating around in space taking images. Because
5-year period, one gem was discovered just before the completion of this documentary. An old reel received by mistake. It contains the raw or unedited footage of the crew of Apollo 11, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin Jr. and Neil Armstrong, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color, with exceptionally clear behind-the-scenes audio of conversations discussing the techniques used to achieve a disingenuous picture depicting the Earth at a distance. This is a segment that they believed wasn't even being recorded, much less suitable for broadcast, for the lens was being zoomed out and the scene was being changed to that of an interior of the astronauts at work, and apparently the stop button popped back up on the recorder without notice. Here is the diffused work light that they used to see camera controls, but not throw light onto the spacecraft's wall. Here they remove part of the crescent insert. Finally, the iris is opened up to see the real location of the camera and the very bright and near Earth out the window.
So, the official story by NASA has been that there are thousands and thousands of satellites orbiting in space from 130 miles to over 300 miles above us, bolting around at speeds we cannot even comprehend of some 17,000 miles per hour, where heat temperatures are in the thousands of degrees, where space is in a near vacuum with little nothing to push off against to propel the spacecraft. Really? Basic physics says movement equals force applied against resistance. And what about all the space junk and debris? According to Wiki, there are more than 500,000 pieces of space debris orbiting Earth, traveling at speeds of up to 175,000 miles per hour. Even a very small piece of space debris traveling at these velocities would significantly damage a spacecraft or a satellite, not to mention kill a spacewalker. Again from Wiki, quote, "At the low altitudes at which the ISS orbits, there are a variety of space debris consisting of many different objects, including entire spent rocket stages, defunct satellites, explosion fragments, including materials from anti-satellite weapon tests, paint flakes, slag from solid rocket motors, and coolant released by USA nuclear-powered satellites. These objects, in addition to natural micrometeoroids, are a significant threat." End quote. Additionally, we've been sold by NASA that there are also millions of micrometeoroids traveling at speeds of as fast as 6,000 miles per hour. One such debris can cause significant damage to spacemen and their craft, yet NASA has been willing to put astronauts' lives at such risk. Come on, folks, do you really believe such utter nonsense and lie? A 7-gram object shot at 16,000 miles per hour, which is close to the orbital velocity of the ISS, made this 5 7/8 crater in a solid block of aluminum. Yet NASA says no problema. So what is NASA's solution to space debris and micrometeoroids? Well, in the 1940s, Fred Whipple proposed a meteoroid shield for the spacecraft called the Whipple Shield in recognition of his contribution. Again from Wiki, quote, "The Whipple shield consists of a thin aluminum, quote, sacrificial wall mounted at a distance from a rear wall. The function of the first sheet or, quote, bumper is to break up the projectile into a cloud of material containing both projectile and bumper debris. This cloud expands while moving across the standoff, resulting in the impactor momentum being distributed over a wide area of the rear wall. The back sheet must be thick enough to withstand the blast loading from the debris cloud and any solid fragments that remained," end quote. According to NASA, there have been 187 spacewalks from the ISS ship alone. There's no evidence of Whipple shields being installed on any spacewalk astronauts. So let's go back in time to Hollywood productions, national official photos. Let's go to the moon and official NASA image archives from 40 years back, which NASA has provided thousands and thousands of alleged photographs from the moon landings. Here is the LEM, or Lunar Excursion Module, that allegedly landed on the moon 6 times carrying 2 astronauts. The base was used as a launch pad to redock up with the orbiting command module traveling at some 3,000 miles per hour. First look at this construction. My 10-year-old son could do a better design in his art class. How did this even fly? Yet NASA says the LEM landed on the moon. Come on, folks. Art paper, gold foil, and tape, it looks like to me. Here we see a perfectly lit photograph image of Buzz Aldrin leaving the LEM. The lighting is perfect, though there is no atmosphere and the intense sun is on the other side of the craft. But NASA needed its picture, so Photoshop they did. Here Buzz Aldrin is touching down into the gray lunar surface where temperatures range from 240 degrees minus in the shade, we are told, and some plus 225 degrees in the sunlight. Forget about all the gadgets and moon buggy working perfectly in such heat. Think about how hot the LEM became after the astronauts were on the moon's surface for hours at a time. Did it have air conditioning? Did it bring its own water? It makes no sense at even the most basic of logic or reason. But wait, what is this? There was a midget astronaut on the moon? Didn't you know? Again, official NASA photo. Shopped. There are thousands and thousands of these pictures from the Apollo missions, and when even curiously examined, they do not hold up to scrutiny. Now back to the LEM. How did this flying trash can even fly? Forget about being in a vacuum in space. What aerospace engineer designed this thing? And we are told to believe this thing landed on the moon, then launched back into space every time without incident? And now let's look at the retired space shuttle that we are sold returns from over 100 miles in space and glides. That's right, glides back down to Earth without any jet-powered assistance. The story goes that from a speed of 17,500 miles per hour and 130 miles in space, it descends and executes a series of bank maneuvers that slow the craft down to where it lands by gliding at some 240 miles per hour. Here is a glider. Look at its wingspan. The space shuttle weighs in upon return to Earth at over 150,000 pounds empty, with wings half the size of a 747, which is jet-powered. Look at its wings. Heck, Buzz Lightyear had a bigger wingspan than this flying AMC Pacer, yet NASA says it glides. So it glides, and there has never been any problems on landings. Wow. Let's move on. If gravity is said to dissipate at some 130 miles from Earth so that man can walk in space, then how the heck does the moon with 1/6 the gravitational pull and 1/4 the size of the Earth make our oceans go up and down twice a day, as well as reshape the Earth obliquely from some 238,000 miles away? The following is from Google Photoshop Earth. Why does Google nor any of NASA's satellites ever show us the view from space from the poles, showing the Earth allegedly rotating at 1,000 miles per hour like basic astronomy tells us it does? I found this on YouTube from a gentleman named Dave Snyder, who has been following Google Earth for 3 years of the pictures of the poles. He states that it's been 10 days since they updated this shot of the North Pole, and it never changes. Why? He says that on Google Earth, the North Pole is like this all the time. You can see a lot of weather around the outside of the North Pole, yet the shot of the pole is blocked out. Why? Here we see the Antarctic. It always looks like this, he says. Look at it. Does this look real to you? Why is there no weather? Why is the photo so undefined? Again, images, not pictures, my friends.
They don't believe in evolution. And my response generally is, so why not? Really, why not?
You guys believe 20 billion years ago there was a big bang where nothing exploded and produced everything. 4.6 billion years ago the Earth cooled down, made a hard rocky crust. It rained on the rocks for millions of years, turned them into soup, and the soup came alive 3 billion years ago. Found somebody to marry, and something to eat, of course, and slowly evolved into everything we see today. There are some lies in our science books. Taught it for 15 years. Even though I'm not teaching it anymore, I still like to study. It's so many neat things to learn. We're going to cover some of that tonight. I'm not against science, I'm not against schools, I'm not against teachers, because most of them don't know what they believe. You have to tell them. They teach the kids it all started with a big bang 20 billion years ago. What exploded? This is what the textbooks teach.
Before the Big Bang, there was nothing, literally nothing, an infinitesimal nugget of space. And then something happened, triggering the most colossal explosion in history.
Yes, boys and girls, you see, nothing exploded, and here we are. So I asked this professor if I could ask him some questions about the Big Bang. I said, where did all this matter come from? He said, well, we don't know that for sure. I said, well, sir, would you please tell me where the laws came from? The universe is run by laws, gravity, centrifugal force, inertia. Who gave the laws? He said, we don't know that either. I said, sir, could you tell me where the energy came from? You know, it takes energy to make a big bang. Who bought the gas to run this machine anyway? He said, we don't know that either. I said, sir, could I ask you another question? He said, sure. What else would you like to know? Else? What do you mean else? You haven't told me nothing yet.
Universe. Don't worry, I'll make it quick. Now, the Earth spins at the equator at about 1,000 miles per hour around its axis, and this axis has a tilt of exactly 24.5 degrees, and that's where we get seasons. And as we spin, we also orbit the Sun at 66,000 miles per hour, and the Sun is located 93 million miles from Earth. And that Sun is just an average star out of the hundreds of billions in our galaxy alone. And the orbit of the Sun means we travel 584 million miles in 1 year, while the Sun also orbits the Milky Way galaxy at about 500,000 miles per hour, meaning it travels 4.4 billion miles in that same year, while the Milky Way galaxy is traveling at 1.34 million miles per hour, meaning it traveled 11.8 billion miles in that same year. Now, after all that, we never feel a thing. Add to that, the North Star Polaris doesn't change its location from our point of view. You may call it science, I call it a belief. In other words, I call it bullshit. Now, congratulations are in order to the Masons on fooling the world for 400 years with your pathetic satanic worship.
It's a tricky, let's hit the one, two. What if it is a lunatic? We'll leave it up to you. Put it in your pocket and pick it up. We're here to entertain, show them what you got.
Maybe it's in the cupola. Hey, Ronnie, you taking pictures? No. No, it's not in the cupola. Okay. Hey, Ron? Ronnie? No, not in the PMM. Okay. Well, maybe down here. Maybe he's in his hooch. In his crew quarters.
No idea. Well, I saw him hitting the Russian segment.
Going to the Russian segment. Okay. Okay. I'll look down there. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. I wonder why he's down there. Stopped off for some little coffee with the buddies down there. Okay. Hey, привет. Привет. Hi. Oh. Hey.
And at the same time, all the lights are spinning around in sync with this complicated motion.
I mean, it was literally like these rigs had your life in their hands. If something broke, I had nothing to hold on to. If some camera came crashing through my face, nothing I could do, you just say goodbye.
Sandra has this dancer background, so she took this approach of prepping herself for a very complicated choreography. She trained like crazy for 5 months so that she could work with those rigs without conveying the tension of the rigs. So in the moment of the performance, it's just pure expression.
Whether it was the cage or whatever rigging system they had, you just embraced the pain because these were all unique creations of brilliant people who had to think of something that doesn't exist in order to make a movie Alfonso was told couldn't be done.
Explorer, do you copy?
Explorer, permission to retrieve Dr. Stone.
My feeling, Charlie, is that it's not that pseudoscience and superstition and New Age so-called beliefs and fundamentalist zealotry are something new. They've been with us for as long as we've been human. But we live in an age based on science and technology with formidable technological powers.
Science and technology are propelling us forward at accelerating rates.
That's right. And if we don't understand it, by we I mean the general public, if it's something that oh, I'm not good at that, I don't know anything about it, then who is making all the decisions about science and technology that are going to determine what kind of future our children live in? Just some members of Congress? But there's no more than a handful of members of Congress with any background in science at all. And the Republican Congress has just abolished its own Office of Technology Assessment, the organization that gave them bipartisan, competent advice on science and technology. They say, we don't want to know. Don't tell us about science and technology.
Surprising, the danger of all this. I mean, you know, this is not the thing that...
There's two kinds of dangers. One is what I just talked about, that we've arranged a society based on science and technology, in which nobody understands anything about science and technology, and this combustible mixture of ignorance and power, sooner or later, is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it? And the second reason that I'm worried about this is that science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along. It's a thing that Jefferson laid great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in a Constitution or a Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they had to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government. The government runs us.
If you don't believe it, they're happy to tell you that themselves. One of the most powerful secret societies in the world, not the only one, but one of the most powerful one, was called the Bavarian Illuminati. Please excuse me if you're familiar with some of this material, but I'm assuming that people here tonight are for the first time. Welcome. You came here for truth, you're going to get it. Well, one of the most powerful secret societies in the world was called the Bavarian Illuminati. It was founded by a German called Adam Weishaupt, but the mantle later passed to the famous Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini. Let's read his own words about his order, these secret societies. He says, "We form an association of brothers in all points of the globe, yet there is one unseen that can hardly be felt. Yet it weighs on us. Whence comes it? Where is it? No one knows, or at least no one tells. This association is secret even to us, the veterans of the secret societies." The head of the Illuminati is telling you there's something above us. 1700s. Well, let's come up a little bit more to date. American history, Walter Rathenau, German General Electric, a man who had a lot of say in American politics. 300 men, he says, all of whom know one another, direct the economic destiny of Europe and choose their successors from among themselves. Joseph Kennedy, and he should know, said that 50 men have run America, and that's a high figure. Benjamin Disraeli, the first Jewish Prime Minister of England, who spent his life uncovering the network of subversive organizations, said the world is run by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. And your own Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter, he said that the real rulers in Washington are invisible and exercise power from behind the scenes. Senator Inouye says that there exists a shadowy government with its own air force, its own navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideals of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself. Hell, they created the law. You think they're bound by it? Think again. You're bound by it. They'll kick your door in. But you can't even stop them from the atrocities they're perpetrating on the world. Not yet, anyway. And as a general rule of thumb, to those who have studied this and are also beginning their study in this, let's just realize when it comes to these power hierarchies at the top of the pyramid that I'm talking about, as a general rule of thumb, it's not 100% true, but it's about 90% true. If you happen to see the rulers, the controllers, the kings, the princes, the dukes in the media, that means in magazines and newspapers and in encyclopedias and so forth and history books and on TV, chances are they are not the architects of the programs and the policies that they are instigating. They are just what I refer to as the people's champions. They are just what I refer to in the book as overworld figures. With very few exceptions, they are not the architects of doom. I have a DVD coming out next year called Evil's Willing Servants, which will tell you who are the architects. That's a sort of a missing piece. But just for now, know that if you see them on, the fact that you just see them on television, or the fact that you see them in the common media, they're lower henchmen. Never forget that. It'll empower you to know that, because they are not the henchmen. They're power, drugged, sick, perverted, toxic individuals who serve powers behind the scenes. There's no reason in the world to fear them. The symbolism confirms what I'm saying. Symbolism, the key is symbolism, symbol literacy. They may appear on paper, of course, as, at each other's throats, different parties, different networks, all appearing to have this faux democracy, this faux conflict. But as the symbolism clearly shows you, they all sit at Cecil Rhodes' round table. They all are comfortable, the criminals of the world, pretending through their faux conflict that the ship of state is also difficult to run, and the human race is just so hard to rein in and keep them all under order. We have to prevent war and bring peace. It's so damn difficult. Look at how difficult our job is. But whose table are they sitting around? What are the symbols telling you at the G7 summit? On paper, again, it appears to be a two-party system. Is it? They're happy to tell you actually it's not. They don't going to tell you that verbally, but they're certainly going to tell you in other ways by the symbolism that they use, which I hope that most people in this room are able to decode. But think of the mass of humanity who are not. Ancient symbols being used in modern context, all over the media, all over the world. Languages, words, symbols, that we need to be able to understand what they mean. Doesn't mean the symbol inherently is negative, but it ties in with the fact that they have obediences and allegiances. Not only are these individuals using ancient sacred symbols, but they are a one-party system. Whatever way the coin falls, they win. But more than just using, sacred power symbols and whatnot, these individuals have hidden allegiances that you and I are not meant to know about. So what allegiances? Well, if I'm making a promise to you, but I've got my fingers crossed behind my back, how good is that promise? Well, these characters have very much got their fingers crossed behind their back. They have allegiances, all right, that come before their allegiance to humanity and to the world and to the professed stuff that they're talking about. Here's a perfect example. In Washington, D.C., the statue of George Washington. The whole story is shown to you here. Let's read it. George Washington, it says under the plinth, underneath the bust, Freemason and first president. Let's read it again. Freemason and first president. Now, I'm not even American. I'm actually from Belfast, but I take offense to that statement. Should it not be first president and Freemason? It should be, but they're telling you how the pecking order works. What comes first? And underneath you have the Masonic G. So these behind-the-scenes allegiances come before, and you need to know about it. That's why you never get justice in the courts. That's why you never see any of these people are brought to justice, because of their allegiances that you need to know about that come long before their allegiances to you. Now, in the inception, let's not forget that your greatest enemy of this country wasn't the French, wasn't the Russians, wasn't the Outer Mongolians, wasn't the Iraqis, it wasn't the Afghanis, wasn't the Arabs. Oh, guess what? Look it up in a history book. You tell me, who's your first enemy? England, Britain. Now, the British royals were not worried that force of arms had not secured America for them, right? Because basically they got their ass whipped 200 years ago. Don't let's get started with wondering what happened to America in the meantime to become so complacent. Let's leave that one aside. But armed force, they realized, was only one of many insidious strategies that the royals and their henchmen have used to undermine any rival. The Fabians were sent in as agents in the following years to do their work. Okay, they got plenty of other strategies. So President McKinley, Henry Ford, Howard Hughes, Charles Lindbergh Sr., Senator Joe McCarthy, and anyone else who knew what was happening were either politically or even physically assassinated. Now, who are these Fabians? They're a wing of the secret societies, and they believe in what's called the war of attrition. You should write that down, the war of attrition. It's very important. The Fabian Society, founded in 1883, played a catalytic role preaching the inevitability of gradualness. in the movement towards a socialist society. Socialist is a secret society term, by the way, not a political term. We'll come to that later. Taking their name from the Roman warrior Fabius, who learned to wait patiently before striking a fatal blow against Hannibal. Hannibal is charging over mountains. Hannibal is plowing through jungles. He's hauling elephants across Asia Minor. He's busy crossing lakes. Well, Fabius is sitting whittling on a piece of wood, waiting patiently. Right? The spider in the web. Originally, before and during the American War of Independence, relations were good, very good, with many other powerful nations, like Russia, like France and Germany. People looked to America with respect and admiration. But the Vatican and the British had a great deal to lose if the world's other nations and governments began to base their political systems, you see, on the original American model, which was scintillating. The whole eyes of the world was watching. The Tsar was sending you ships in the War of Independence. Relations were good. Instead of a Cold War, which you had to endure, your forefathers had to endure lasting generations, what would have happened if the admiring Tsar of Russia had modeled his rule, right? He was getting ready to do it, by the way, before the Bolsheviks moved in. But what would have happened if he had totally based his rule on the American system? And what would have happened, may I ask, to Vatican-controlled South America had North America remained sovereign and solvent up here, right? All that mind control down there under the name of religion. What do you think would have happened down there to that country had America been a shining example? You think that the British and that the Vatican could, tolerate that? The American Democratic Party originally was called the Democratic Society. It's actually an offshoot of the Jacobin Club, or the Jacobin Society, which is nothing more than the Illuminati that we've been talking about. The Illuminati's main tentacle operating in the political domain is known in England as the Fabian Society. Their socialist, so-called progressive, but it's really a pseudo-progressive ideology, is disseminated by the Democratic parties and their other left-wing interests. On your dollar bill, you have the Illuminati symbol of the pyramid. The Illuminati was founded, as I said a little earlier, by Adam Weishaupt. But when he passed on, the mantle moved to Giuseppe Mazzini, and finally moved to the man on the right, Albert Pike. Every single human being in America should know the name Albert Pike, and very few do. We're talking, you think that the George Bushes and the Clintons and the Roosevelts, and you don't know about Albert Pike? These are the hidden ones that shape the world events. But we almost know nothing about them. Albert Pike is a seminal figure in the creation of the Ku Klux Klan, by the way. George Washington said that I have heard much of the nefarious and dangerous plan of the Illuminati. Now, your neighbor won't believe you. He'll call you a crank. But, the fact is that even George Washington was all knowing about it. It was not my intention, he says, to, doubt that the doctrines of the Illuminati and the principles of Jacobinism had not spread in the United States. On the contrary. No one is more truly satisfied of this fact than I am. Joseph Willard, the president of Harvard University, spoken at the time of his retirement, he says there is sufficient evidence that a number of societies of the Illuminati have established in this land. They are doubtless striving to secretly undermine all our ancient institutions, civil and sacred. We live in an alarming period. The enemies of all order are seeking our ruin. Should infidelity generally prevail, our independence would fall, of course. Our republican government would be annihilated. Now, just like I was explaining about the Theosophy, the mystical organization that was infiltrated by this Lucifer trust, so Freemasonry, which once was a great archive of knowledge, a mystical doctrine, coming out of the ancient world, preserving many metaphysical secrets about the human body and about our relationship with the Creator. That was also infiltrated. Well, why not? If I was them, I'd probably want to do it. There it is, ready and waiting. All set up. So this group of the Illuminati were able to infiltrate that as well. We'll read that in a minute. But the thing is that it alarmed not only George Washington, but the head of World Freemasonry, Grand Orient Freemasonry at the time, was the Duke of Brunswick in the 1700s. And he actually stood up publicly and asked for the worldwide disbandment of Freemasonry because he understood that it was being infiltrated in this way. We're going to read a caption together from the Duke of Brunswick. And I want you to pay particular attention not only to what he's saying, but the way that he is saying it. Because that is an incredible modern appeal. He says, I have been convinced that we, as an order, have come under the power of some very evil occult order, profoundly versed in science, both occult and otherwise, though not infallible, their methods being black magic. That is to say, electromagnetic power. hypnotism and powerful suggestion. We are convinced that the order is being controlled by some sun order, after the nature of the Illuminati, if not by that order itself. John Robinson, a Scottish man who wrote the first book exposing them, his date is 1798, so just don't think this is a modern thing of the 20th century. John Robinson was approached by, very much in the same way as Anthony Sutton in this country was approached. John Robinson was approached by members of the Illuminati that they wanted intelligentsia. He was a university teacher, you see. He kind of looked into it, and as soon as he found out what was going on, he not only didn't join, he exposed it in an incredible book called Proofs of a Conspiracy. And he quotes Adam Weishaupt, who said that the great strength of our order lies in its concealment. Let it never appear in any place in its own name, but always covered by another name and another occupation. None is fitter than the 3 lower degrees of Freemasonry. The public is accustomed to it, expects little from it, and therefore takes little notice of it. He goes on to say in another place, these good folks swell our numbers and fill our money box. Set yourselves to work. These gentlemen must be made to nibble at the bait. But this sort of people must always be made to believe that the grade they have reached is the last. Well, don't you have fraternities and grades from school upwards, where the same policy goes? One of the, I don't know if you know how much women played a role in the exposure to secret societies. You need to know about Madame Blavatsky. You need to know about Nesta Webster, and you need to know about Edith Starr Mill or Lady Queensborough. In her book, she says at the turn of the century, she says, we must allow, quoting from Weishaupt, we must allow all the federations to continue just as they are, with their systems, their central authorities, and their diverse modes of correspondence between high grades of the same right, organized as they are at present, but we must create a super right, which will remain unknown, to which we will call those Masons of high degree, whom we shall select. Through this supreme right, we will govern all Freemasonry, which will become the one international center, the more powerful because its direction will be unknown. So, yes, full circle. All of these individuals, and in my other work, it's just voluminous how much information we've got on this, that they're talking about a hierarchy. The symbols tell you alone. There it is, the two-dimensional, removed 14th level, with the eye, which I believe is the eye of Aton, the solar cult eye, officiating over the lower ranks.
If you've retired, you don't have anything to worry about. It's the 3rd time I've said that. I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
We must declare war on war, so the outcome will be peace upon peace. We must declare war on war, so the outcome will be peace upon peace.
I think that allowing for the book being, after all, a parody, something like 1984 could actually happen. This is the direction the world is going in at the present time.
We must declare war on war, so the outcome will be peace upon peace.
If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
In my book, there's a lot of genealogical research, going back, Dick's family, my family, these heroic and amazing tales of people who went west. But one of the things I discovered is that Dick and Barack Obama are 8th cousins.
Make of that story. For those who don't know this, so Lynn Cheney, the vice president's wife, has been doing some genealogy connected to her latest book. And lo and behold, way back, 8 generations ago,
8 generations or
you
something.
and Mr. Cheney apparently have some distant relative. What did you make of that story when it came out?
I actually knew about it because
The name of my cousin, Dick Cheney, will not be on the ballot.